So we like being hunters more than gatherers. I'd rather go and hunt for what I want and get exactly what it is we're looking for.
We call it manifesting.
Yes.
Right.
I didn't want to use that Gen Z word, but I'm joking. Failure rate of startups is significantly high. 99% of startups will not make it. 1% make it big.
Do you secretly dream of becoming a shark on Shark Tank?
No.
Why not?
I'll tell you why. I don't like saying no to people.
Hi everyone, my name is Daryl,
And my name is Lynette, and welcome back to another episode of Thriving as.
a venture capitalist. Today we break down and demystify what a VC does and hopefully share some advice for people who are keen to enter the industry.
Vishal, could you introduce yourself and tell us what exactly does a venture capitalist do?
Well, my name's Vishal Harnal, and I'm a venture capitalist, or like how I like to think about it, an adventure capitalist, because of the sheer variety of adventures I get to go on with entrepreneurs in different parts of the world and understanding ideas, understanding how businesses grow and scale. And it truly feels that way to me. So I am the managing partner of a VC firm called 500 Global. We started the firm in Palo Alto, which is in the heart of Silicon Valley, and scaled that firm over the last 15 years to invest in 3,000 companies across 80 different countries. And it's been such a remarkable journey. So many of the companies that are day-to-day parts of our lives, even over here in Southeast Asia, like Grab and Carousel, started off as investments in startups that we made more than 10 years ago.
Why
should
do
call
Grab
yourselves-
here today?
Yeah, there we go. There we
Call
go.
ourselves 3,000 Global.
You know, we get that joke a lot. You'd be surprised. So everyone's like, "Oh, 500 global. What is? You should be 5,000 global or 30,000 global or something like that." And the truth is, our name used to be 500 startups. And
Right.
once we exceeded 500 startups, we decided, let's change the name to 500 Global. 500 was an aspirational number for us because it seemed ridiculous at the time the firm was started that one could invest in 500 companies. But in a few years, we surpassed that number and it just kept growing. And so we kept 500 to keep that aspirational part of what it is we do. But we changed the last word to global because perhaps it is 500 funds, right? 500 areas, 500 ideas. It could span into so many different things. But yes, I take the point. It's growing very, very quickly.
I guess it's also a way for you to look back at the exponential growth of your company and, like take time to reflect of like what you guys have achieved over the years, right? Is that correct?
You're absolutely right. People like myself and my partners, we live with a little bit of paranoia all the time on whether we still maintain the right to win deals, whether we still have what it takes to build and grow and scale the company. And sometimes you forget to appreciate what you've built so far. So it's a great time to pause, to reflect, to reground yourself on what the mission is, quite apart from the work that it is that you do. And it just keeps you going, which is to think big, at scale, and touch the lives of as many people and empower as many entrepreneurs as possible.
For those who may not be too familiar with what a VC does, can you just explain the concept of a venture cap firm? What do you actually do? How does the firm make money?
It's a great question, and I'll put it the simplest way first, and then you can peel that onion in many different ways and explore different avenues to understand this question. So effectively what venture capitalists do is we raise capital to invest in startups. And the vehicle we use to invest in those startups are funds, venture capital funds. So let's say there's a founder, an entrepreneur, of the two of you decide, you know what? I'm going to make Thrive.ai, the AI-generated podcast for Gen Zs and Zillennials, a term that the two of you just taught me before we got onto this podcast. And you want to go and raise some capital. Where do you go? You could put in your own money and your own savings into it. And maybe that takes you a little bit, it takes you some distance. But then you say, you know what? I seem to have a lot of users. I seem to have a lot of followers. I want to scale this. I want to set up my own studio. So maybe it'll occur to you, let me go to a bank. And you go to the bank and you say, hey, can I have a business loan to set up a business? And the bank's going to say, well, what security do you have to offer me against the loan? And you're going to be like, well, we're two millennials, zillennials that have got together and we've got ambition and drive and passion and $20,000 that we put into the business so far. And they'll tell you, well, we can't give you a loan or we can't underwrite it because there's nothing to guarantee that we'd get our money back or nothing to offset the risk of you failing in growing the business. So who takes that risk when banks don't want to take it, when the traditional financial ecosystem doesn't want to take it? And that's the avenue that VCs play in. The VCs come in and they say, okay, you know what? Instead of you having to grow this business brick by brick over 20 to 30 years and bring Thrive.ai to life, let's find a way to underwrite the risk of the business today and say, I'm going to give you $500,000 to $1 million, maybe a little bit more. Go get this studio up and running, and we'll see if we can scale this business today. And maybe in the course of the next 5 to 10 years, make this a $1 billion company. I mean, I joke about that, but that's kind of like the way that we think about it.
From what you've shared, it sounds like a really huge risk that you are taking when you're trying to bet on someone's like dream in a way.
Yes.
On that note, what are some kind of qualities you look for in like the business or like the owner before you invest in them?
Let's go back to our example of Thrive.ai, which maybe the two of you will be inspired to start after this. You're two people and a dream with a direction on where you want to go. Maybe you have a deck. Maybe you have some controversial insight into this business based on the experience that you have. If you come to me as a very early stage VC, what am I really betting on at that stage?
The entrepreneurs.
The entrepreneurs. I'm betting on the two of you and your ability to build this business. So what do I need to make this work for myself? As an early stage VC, and this even applies as you go down the line, I need to make sure that the risk reward ratio is very asymmetrical, which is the risk I'm taking is huge. So the reward must be absolutely massive for it to make sense for me to take.
So it's like a high risk, high return kind of situation.
That is the exact situation. And so for me, the way I offset that risk is through my fund. I'm not just investing in Thrive.ai. I'll be investing in 20 other companies or 30 other companies. And I just need a few of those companies to make it big for the fund to make money and returns for the investors.
And where do you get the funds to invest in these companies?
Again, it depends on the size of the funds that you're raising. So we raise from a variety of different people. It starts from ultra high net worth individuals, people with a high enough disposable income to invest in a fund, family offices, corporates. But the largest part of our capital base comes from what you call institutional investors, sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, financial institutions, insurance groups, university endowments that invest in firms like us and our funds to give some diversification to their returns and also to give them exposure to the technology and innovation economy, right? It's very difficult as an outsider to invest in companies like OpenAI, but through our funds, and if you invest in a VC firm, maybe you'll get early access to investments like that. And that is the hope.
And you mentioned that your firm invested in, what was it, Grab and was it Carousel?
Carousel.
Yes, we've invested in over 400 companies just in this region.
Wow.
A lot.
What other companies have you guys invested in? Can you share it up with us?
Sure, but that's a very, very long list.
Maybe just 5.
Okay,
off
I'll
the
give
top
you
of your
5.
head.
I'll give you 5 companies. You've obviously heard of Grab and Carousel in Singapore, but do you both use a design tool called Canva? Or
Oh, we do. We do
Every
use
day.
it for our work.
We invested it when it was worth single-digit millions, right?
Wow.
So that's another example of one of our companies. Twilio and Talkdesk, they run a lot of the back-end piping of, when you get SMS messages when someone sends you something to authenticate, or to send you something for marketing. We have a laser telecommunications company called Translestial, again, started over here, that is powering everything from telecoms in Coachella to warships off the coast of Singapore
Oh,
to
wow, that's like a huge
disaster relief,
contrast.
disaster relief in typhoon-struck areas, to providing backhaul to places like Penang in Malaysia, where, it's an offshore island. So phenomenal businesses all around the world in a variety of different sectors. So the span is very huge. So firms like us, we call ourselves generalists, which is we invest in a variety of different companies across multiple spaces. With every generational technology change, new technologies come about, and we always want to learn about it. It's one of the things I love about what I do. I don't even find it to be, many people talk about a job or work. I don't consider this to be either. It's just an exploration of new technologies, ideas, and entrepreneurial passion.
So I heard that you've also invested in this catering company called Grain. Is that correct?
Yes. So apart from these large multi-billion-dollar technology companies that are part of our portfolio that I speak about, we also invest in businesses that sort of look like D2C businesses. And Grain, which started as a meal delivery company,
We love Grain. We
is
love
one of them.
Grain.
And I think we made that investment 10 years ago. It was a
It's been around
long
so
time.
long.
Grain's been around for ages.
Oh, I thought it was a new
didn't know
company.
that.
So when I was a lawyer,
Uh-huh.
it's a long time ago, and you're stuck in your offices. You can't go out for meals. And I used to do like high stakes litigation and arbitration, right? There's no time to go out and get a decent meal. And the fastest thing you can get is probably get your secretary to go down to the hawker center and buy something quick and bring it back up to you. And it's not really that healthy. Your only other option is a sandwich if you want something like that. So you're always stuck, and you're waiting for something else that can come about and provide you with something quick and nutritious. Now, just to date this is more than 10 years ago. There's no Grab Food, there's no Food Panda, there's no Deliveroo. None of that stuff exists in the market. Food delivery is not a thing.
Except for McDonald's.
Except for McDonald's.
Or maybe pizza.
Or
Pizza Hut,
Hut.
Domino's.
But again, that falls into the category of food that's unlikely to make you feel great about yourself.
Unhealthy food.
When
Yeah.
when you need something. So one day when I go down from my office building just to walk out to get some lunch really quickly, I see this small car pull up with this logo on the side, Grain, and it says "Abs are made in the kitchen," which used to be
Oh.
their sort of like catch line tag phrase. And this guy comes running out with some boxes of food and taking it, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to go back to the office and Google that when I'm back for lunch. And I go and I realize these guys do meal delivery. This is amazing. So check out the food, looks pretty healthy, and I try it out. Get it to the office, love it, order it again, order it again. People on my floor start to ask me, what is that thing I'm eating? And I'm saying, oh, it's this company called Grain. I send them the link. Suddenly, they're ordering from Grain as well, and we're putting in group orders with Grain. In very short order, many people across the firm are ordering from this particular food.
It sounds like you're an influencer.
In another life, I might have been a cult leader, but I'm in the good guy universe right now. So it catches on in a very, very quick way. And pretty soon, people are saying things like, oh, are you graining today? Which is suddenly that company's become a verb. And this is the last 6 months of me being a lawyer, and I move into venture capital, a profession I knew almost nothing about when I started in it. And I'm thinking about, okay, what are some of the companies I can invest in and that are worth investing in? And I thought about these guys that are doing the grain business. And I didn't know how to get in touch with them. So I basically write into the customer service hotline and I say, hey, I'm a VC. I really like your business. Can you put me in touch with the people that are running it? I want to speak with them about investment, because we didn't know how to get a hold of the founders. And the person on the customer service line basically says, I'm one of the co-founders of the company. I'm happy to have a chat about it. Whoa, you guys are 500 startups. Oh, this is awesome. Back then we were called 500 startups. And we looked at the company, spoke with them about investing in the business, brought some other people along to invest in the company as well, and closed it. So that was an interesting story about how Grain started. And they've morphed over the years into a catering company. And you know what's really funny is that if I'm at some event in Singapore, no matter where it is, I went to check out the Punggol Digital District over the weekend with the JTC CEO and a few other people. Food catered by Grain. A few weeks ago, I was speaking at NUS at the Healthy Longevity Institute. Food catered by Grain. Like everywhere you go, it's just Grain everywhere.
All the
Everywhere.
past church weddings that I've been to, they've all been Grain as well.
Look at that. Look at
I
that.
mean, I personally enjoy grains food, so yeah.
Yeah.
We get
But
it sometimes to the office.
Yeah.
yes. So I see a lot of the catering a lot more often and less of the delivery. And that's a
Yeah.
function of, you invest in the business then has a run, and then food delivery, Grab Food starts, Deliveroo starts, Food Panda starts. There's a lot more competition and it changes the dynamics. So the business has to adapt and find new ways of building and growing and surviving.
So you mentioned it earlier, you started your career as a lawyer. So how did you get to where you are today?
That's a long story. And I'm trying to find a way to shorten and give you the short Cliff Notes version of it. So you've got to rewind back a little bit from when I was a lawyer to what I was doing before that.
Mm.
I started a company when I was around the time when I was in NS, or around that time started to sort of like think a little bit more entrepreneurially, even before I was in NS. And it was a business in the education space. What the business was and what it did doesn't really matter anymore. But I always loved the concept of building my own businesses and being entrepreneurial and independent because it just gives you a sense of being in charge of your own destiny in a very, very big way and allowing yourself to express who you are through business, right? Usually, when we think about creative expression or we think about self actualization, you think about it in terms of the arts or music
Yeah.
or dance or painting or things like that. But it can also be in business, it can also be an entrepreneurial expression of who you are. And I love that aspect of businesses. But when I had started that, there was no VC ecosystem, there was no startup ecosystem. This is 2003. It was a long time ago. And so there was little support. And so while the business was growing and I think it was reasonably successful, we had to close it down because we didn't know how to support and scale the business. And I became a lawyer. The business partner at the time became an investment banker. And when I joined law and I became a lawyer, and I worked with a great firm, probably the best at the time at what we did, for the best lawyer in Singapore. That experience made me realize that I didn't feel as passionately about what I was doing compared to what I did before, and definitely not as passionate as my boss did about it. And my realization is to be world class, to play at that level, you must live and breathe and truly enjoy what you do. And it must be like a mission in your life or a significant part of your life to be
Passion's
really
really
getting great
important
at it.
to keep you driven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It also is what allows you to burn that midnight oil and get ahead of everyone else. And imagine this, if you actually like what you do on a day-to-day basis, doesn't that give you an advantage over everyone else that is doing it and thinks it's a job, thinks it's there to pay the bills, feels that it's a chore? Because to you it is play. And so my mission was to find something like that I felt about. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go to business school. Applied to business schools, and
It was
while I was
after you left law.
I was still a lawyer, but I applied,
Right.
right? And this is after 4+ years of law. And
So you're working and studying at the same time?
I was working and studying I was applying for business school. I hadn't started yet. Because I thought that's the best way to solve my midlife, not even midlife crisis. I mean, I was
Quarter
20, I was
life?
27 years old, 28 years old. Oh, what do I do now? Let's go to business school and figure it out. And a friend of mine, when I'd applied and I was waiting to matriculate and all of that stuff, told me, "Hey, so what are you going to do after business school?" And I said, "I have no idea." And he said, "Look, that's not how you do business school. You go to business school, you know exactly what you want to do. You network with the people that you want to network with so you can secure what you want to get after." And that just
Well, that's
sounded
really good advice.
well, it sounded horrible to me because I was going there to figure out my life, right? And make it someone else's problem. But, the course of doing applications, I don't know if any of you have done these kind of essays that are introspective. Who are you and what do you want out of
Oh.
life? What is meaning to you, right? And you start to understand. And if you take those questions seriously and you think about them, and I took time off, I took 3 months off work to sort of travel a little and figure myself out and what motivated me and what I care about. I realized things about myself. I realized the things that brought me the most joy, what I felt were my natural strengths that felt like play to me, but that felt like work to a lot of other people. I understood how I wanted to live and the kind of life I wanted to have. And so it gave me some perspective. What I did then is I took another 2 weeks off work and I decided to reach out to as many people as I could. I reached out to doctors, to other lawyers, to bankers, financiers, management consultants, contractors, interior designers, artists in various fields, random people in LinkedIn doing professions that I hadn't heard of, to just meet them for 2 straight weeks. Coffee, coffee, breakfast, coffee, coffee, lunch, coffee, 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 drinks, dinner, drinks,
Well,
drinks,
that sounds really
every
intense.
day. On the last day of me doing this, another friend of mine had said, there's this guy that runs his venture capital firm. He started it recently in Palo Alto that's visiting Singapore. You should meet up with him. He may give you some perspective, especially since you're thinking of going to the US for business school and all that jazz. So I met up. We had a very long and very interesting conversation and connected on a very human level. And that's when I learned for the first time what venture capital was. And the two of them said, well, stop thinking about what you want to do next. Don't do this business school thing. Come and join us instead and help us build this entire thing, right? You are an entrepreneur. You understand firsthand what it's like to not have access to support, not have access to capital. Imagine what you can do for new entrepreneurs that are building this entrepreneurial ecosystem. And since you understand some parts of like law and finance because of what you've done, maybe that's going to be useful too. And so I thought I'll just do it briefly for a year and then go to business school. But it's been more than a decade that I've been doing this. And I've been running the firm now with a few other partners for a number of years. That's how it happened.
You've been to many places and you're like required to be at different places at the same time. So like what does a typical day look like for you?
Oh, my typical day, Felicia's laughing. My typical day looks quite varied and different. And different VCs would have different ways that they live life. So my life is quite global. As I mentioned to the both of you, I spend my time shifting between different cities. So I live part of my life in Singapore, part of it in Tokyo, part of it in the US, in the Bay Area, and occasionally in Europe. So my life is split between those zones. And in different places, I do different things, right? In Singapore, for example, and in Southeast Asia, we have funds that invest in this part of the world. So we're hunting for deals, looking for investments, companies that we can invest in. And that applies all across the world. We have funds in different parts of the world that are always hunting for great entrepreneurs to invest in. So part of my day is spent hunting for deals. Like, especially my teams out there, they're speaking with the best entrepreneurs. They're trying to get a handle of what's going on and get a pulse of it so we can be ahead of curves and work with entrepreneurs and convince them that they should partner with us and take our cash, because the best entrepreneurs have choices,
So
right?
it sounds like most of the time it's the VC firm that's reaching out to these entrepreneurs and not the entrepreneurs.
No, actually, most of the time, it depends on the VC firm. So like for firms like ours, we get a lot of entrepreneurial inbound. It's actually overwhelming.
Okay.
But we believe in knowing what you want as well. So we like being hunters more than gatherers.
Right.
So we are very privileged to be in a space where we can be gatherers, but I'd rather go and hunt for what I want and get exactly what it is we're looking for. And so hunting is fun. Hunting is competitive, right? Hunting shows you what you're made of and also helps you understand whether you're really providing value to the people that you're investing in or not. Because you've got to work with them and say, here's what we're going to do for you. Here's how we're going to help you grow the company. And yes, there's far less capital than there are entrepreneurs, and many entrepreneurs reach out to us. We can't deal with we don't have the time to deal with everything that comes our way. So it's important to know what you want. Then when you're looking through things, it makes it easier to say no to things that are clearly not what you're looking for, and then go and spend your time, which is your most scarce resource, right? More than anything else, on the things that truly matter and the things that will move the needle. So that's one part of the work. The other part of the work is helping and working side by side with the entrepreneurs and growing and scaling the companies, finding them more capital, unlocking partnerships. Felicia over here works with them on media, content, PR strategies, right? To help them grow and know, so that people know who they are, right? How do you find out what is like a Prefer Coffee? How do you find out what is a Gilmore Space? How does Canva get known in the marketplace and spread its wings? So that's another part of what we do. The third part of what I do is I spend a lot of my time building relationships with pools of capital, people that can invest in our funds and help grow our business at 500. And that's also important, right? Because without having investors to invest in the funds, we don't have capital to invest in entrepreneurs. So ensuring that they have a good experience, our returns are world class, that they come back and say, we want to deploy more capital with you every time we need to raise new funds in different markets, that's also part of what I do. My favorite parts, though, are a lot more reflective. I love thinking and I love spending time thinking, reading, and exploring ideas with people about what the world is going to look like in 10 years. And then understanding what to do today to capture the value of what is being built and be a part of that. So you asked me earlier on in the podcast, what do venture capitalists do? Actually, what I described at the start was a very technical thing. We raise money and we invest in startups. But the heart of it is having a view of what the world would look like. You're almost looking into a crystal ball and you're saying, here's what I think is going to happen in 10 years. AI is going to take over humanity. And then deciding today, based on the business opportunities that you're seeing or what you think you should see, where you're going to deploy capital and how you're going to manage the risk of what you're deploying to capture value and be right. So there's this saying among VCs that you want to be contrarian in the short run and consensus in the long run. So what that means is today, I don't want people to agree with me on what I'm doing. I want people to think I'm crazy. Why is this guy investing in gene editing technologies? That makes no sense. That's science fiction to me. Why is this guy investing in automated voice clones or LLMs that help clone human voices? That is insane. Why is this guy investing in rocket companies that 3D print rocket engines? That makes no sense. And the reason why you don't want too many people to agree with you is if everyone's agreeing with you, A, price goes up, and B, there's just going to be a very crowded marketplace of competition. But in the long run, you want everyone to agree with you because once you're in the company and it's growing, and then everyone starts to agree and see the opportunity, it increases the price of the asset and allows the company to grow and scale. And so venture capital is actually a exercise in foresight, in a predictive ability on what the future looks like, and then understanding what you do.
So it sounds like you're quite a visionary. So what do you think the world will look like in 10 years?
Yeah, tell us what to invest in.
Yeah,
I,
we will like jot it down right now.
as my legal counsel would tell me, none of what I'm saying is investment advice and the words of Vishal Harnal alone.
Right.
And that's very, very true. And I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm a visionary. I'm more like an armchair philosopher of what I think the world would look like, right? And then you have to be deeply obsessed with research and ideas. And you also have to, like, I have a belief, and I don't know how the both of you feel about it, which is that I think if you put your mind to something enough, you can create a reality that you want to create. And I think the best entrepreneurs are like that, which is
We call it manifesting.
yes.
Right.
I didn't want
Manifesting.
to use that Gen Z word. But I'm joking. But yeah, it's exactly that, right? Which is it forces you to focus on things that make what is in your mind's eye a reality. So if you're asking me what I think the world is going to look like in 10 years from now, what I would ask you is, what are people focusing their mind's eye on now and trying to manifest? And what are the first, second, third order consequences of that today? And I think you'll have some idea of what it looks like. I'll tell you
Sounds
what
really
I
philosophical.
still have no idea.
it is. I'll tell you what
Amazing.
it is. So for me, I have a very hard time understanding what the world is really going to look like beyond a 3 to 5 year time horizon.
Yeah.
So the main thought in my mind is it revolves around when we think we're going to hit AGI. And that changes the game for humanity at large. And I don't think most people fully appreciate the repercussions of something like that. To create true artificial intelligence and true artificial general
General
intelligence, because the repercussions on what jobs look like, the repercussions on how people live their lives changes in a very, very, very fundamental way. And so for me, I try and think about, I'm like a technology maximalist, right? So I believe that good will come from this and can come from this. The bad actors are actually human beings that make it worse off for everyone. So things that I think about, like I believe that there should be some form of universal basic income. I think that putting agents to work to tackle humanity's biggest problems, whether it is diseases, whether it is scientific breakthroughs in certain areas, whether it is problems on climate and global warming, are probably a very high form of using intelligence and AI right now for the collective good of humanity. But how do we rally ourselves around goals like this and away from a very innate human desire to keep things for yourself and exclude others from it? So if you're asking me what the world looks like, I think the world looks like a battle against these forces, but in a in a very different dynamic, because there's a race right now to who owns something like AGI, which is why a lot of the money is going into those areas. And I think who gets there first and what happens there has a lot of consequence for a lot of us and how those tools are used. I would like it to be used for good. So for me,
doesn't.
yes. Well, you'd be surprised. I think that not, well, everyone thinks that they're benevolent and everyone can find ways to justify their actions, even if they're not, even if they have horrible repercussions for other people, right? You use the phrase the greater good to justify a lot of horrific
It's a
acts
matter
in
of
humanity.
different perspectives.
It's a matter of different perspectives. So I think that there's some things that are universal goods. So for example, having universal basic income for everyone. So let's say, I'll give you an example of what I mean by this, right? Let's say no one had to worry about the security of having an income. Would people then be hostile towards others or towards AI for taking away jobs? Because the idea of jobs doesn't exist as much. You don't have to worry about work as something that pays the bills and allows you to live. So there are different philosophical ways that you think about how things are going to happen. And my belief, deep belief, is all this happens within the next 10 years. Probably in a more concentrated time frame than that. And we're going to have to confront a lot of issues relating to this. And it presents itself with a lot of different opportunities. I think the other thing that I think about for how the world looks like is I'm very excited about new breakthroughs that are coming, because I think some of the biggest scientific challenges of our time are going to be solved because we have a lot more processing power to solve those problems. Yeah.
Do you secretly dream of becoming a shark on Shark Tank?
No.
Why not?
No. I don't secretly dream of becoming a shark on Shark Tank because
You don't secretly dream. You do dream it.
I
Do you
do.
feel like you're already living the
It's not a
life of a shark
secret.
on Shark Tank?
I'll tell you why. Like, I don't like saying no to people. It is my least favorite part of being a VC. I hate saying no. I love it when people share what they really want to do. And not every idea is a great idea. Some ideas should deserve to die. And not everyone can get funding because funding is a limited resource. So we have to allocate capital across a variety of different people. But the hardest part to me is always saying no. And saying no to someone publicly gives me no joy. So I think when I think about that aspect of being a shark on Shark Tank, and I was invited to do something like that before, and I had declined it because as I thought about the experience of going through this, I didn't want to have to do that. Yeah.
As you've mentioned, you started out in law, and in this industry, it seems like multiple different skill sets are required. So, do you really need a business or finance degree to work in venture capital?
No, I don't think so. I don't believe that you do. I didn't have a business or finance degree when I went into venture capital.
But you had the experience of starting a company, right?
I did, but it's a variety of different life experiences that you draw on, and sometimes there's a great fit and sometimes there isn't. And remember, venture capital is very broad.
Yes.
So there are different people that do different things, right? And so for me, in where I am, which is in my firm, which is running a firm and doing a variety of different things, my strength, I believe, is connecting with people and understanding complex ideas quickly and understanding how to think about the future. I think those are like three skills that I have that I believe that I'm reasonably good at. And it just so happens that those are things that are important to being a good venture capitalist. like strong communications, and my company was in like communication skills in education, an ability to think about complexity well, which is the type of law that I did and practice, helped me with that, and an ability to foresee what things look like in a very interdisciplinary sense. And I have mild ADHD, and I'm always bouncing and curious about a variety of different topics, right? And so during the day, I can meet a shoe company, a rocket company, a laser company, a biotechnology company, a software company, like everything through the course of the day, and just be completely satisfied with that experience, drawing different lessons I can from different things I'm learning about and stitching them into a blanket. So I think for me, those skills are a lot more important. So if we are hiring people and we're looking to hire folks into VC, what would be far more relevant to me would be someone who's worked at a startup and understood what that's like versus someone with a business and finance degree, for example, right? Because you can learn the financial skills. In fact, you can ask ChatGPT to do the financial part of VC if you really wanted to, right? That part is going to become easy. So what becomes harder with time? What becomes harder with time is connecting with people in front of you. How do you arbitrate that away with AI? You can't. So we kind of focus on that. What else do you focus on? You focus on being an orthogonal thinker, coming up with controversial opinion or deep insights that other people don't have. It's harder to get that from a machine, at least for now.
So VC firms don't typically hire fresh grads?
I think I can't speak for other VC firms. We don't usually hire fresh grads into VC, primarily because our firm operates in a very lean way. So we like having small, tight investment teams. So mentoring someone who's fresh out of college on here are the basics of VC, that's not really something that we do very, very often, primarily for that reason. What we do instead is we conduct a lot of programs on venture capital education that people can go for and upskill themselves. So what we usually tell people that want to work for us, right, and different VCs have different ways of doing these things, is go out into the real world, get experience somewhere. So you want to be a VC and you want to break into it, show us that you're really interested in this profession, right? Some people write about it and blog about it and have publish their opinions at large. Other people start angel syndicates, right? Angel investing on behalf of people that they raise cash from and do things like that. Some more work at startups and try and understand what that industry is like before coming to us in VC. And others, we just are lateral hires from other venture capital firms or financial institutions or other areas that we think are useful.
I'm wondering, is there an unspoken rule or unspoken custom within the VC world that outsiders may not know about?
Ooh.
Is there something unique to the VC industry?
There's one that I can talk about, which is something that is you need to understand that fundamentally about venture capital as a profession, because otherwise it's hard to see why we do what we do and you focus on the wrong things. And it's this thing called the power law. Are you familiar with the power law?
No, can you explain?
Most of what we experience in life follows this thing called the normal distribution curve. So, let's say you go to school and your teachers are giving you A, B, C,
Bell
D,
curve?
E. It's on a bell curve. Bell curve is the bell curve, the normal distribution curve, which is things are distributed pretty evenly along this entire curve with outliers on the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
And most of finance works that way as well. Most of life works that way. There are few things in life that follow a different curve, and that curve is called the power law curve. And one of those things is venture capital. So what does that mean? In venture capital, the failure rate of startups is significantly high. Do you know how it is?
No.
99% of startups will not make it. 1% make it big. But that 1% that make it big become global behemoths and giants. You look at the S&P 500, right? Or you look at the top 10 companies in the world. They used to be oil and gas companies, banks, financial institutions, all of that stuff. They're now pretty much all tech companies. All. That's because the few companies captured most global value. Do you know tech companies are now so large that they have more GDP than some nations? It's insane. So it doesn't matter if a company, let's say a company makes, a venture capital firm makes 100 investments. It doesn't matter if 99 of those investments went to zero, as long as one of those investments was Google. That's made them a 10x return.
And so you're always looking for that company that can give you that like 100x, 1000x.
We are trying to only look for companies that can give asymmetrical returns to us, which is why you have to be very willing to be wrong. And that's a very hard thing to come about. I struggled with it when I first joined VC, and a lot of VC struggle with it, which is this idea that you are going to be wrong and then it's very low certainty. There's no right answer over here, like especially in operating in such deeply uncertain times. How do I know if Thrive.ai is going to succeed or not? Because there's a 99% chance you will fail. And I'm still going ahead and saying, I'm going to give it a shot. And you as entrepreneurs are still going ahead and saying, we're going to give it a shot, right? So understanding that is very important because it's the fundamental basis for understanding risk and understanding what you're hunting for and what you're looking for. Because if you get that game wrong, you're not gonna be able to stay in the game of VC. So that's one unspoken thing.
I just wanted to say that approach towards investing is the total opposite of what we often write about, which is personal finance investing. Because if you're going to put all your personal funds into a 99% chance of it failing, I don't think that's very wise.
Which is why you don't do that.
Yeah.
You let a venture capital fund take on that risk for you.
Right.
Or if you want to do it yourself, you should invest in at least 30 to 50 startups, which is what most angel investors do, right? And then hopefully a few of them do okay for themselves, so you make back your cash.
But for the angel investors also, that's not the bulk of their funds, right? Usually it's the funds that they want to diversify.
But the ones that make it big, you have to understand the scale of how big they make it. And what that allows us to do is take risk and bet on entrepreneurs. And so the question is, what drives different people is different. What drives me is being able to back entrepreneurs and help people make a dream in their minds a reality. And I think the friction to doing that is changing over time. So, back to this question of what does the world look like in 10 years? I'll tell you what it looks like in the next 2 years. It's so much easier to start companies, especially with AI tools. Every single one of us in this room, no matter what it is you're doing, you spend one weekend, you can become an entrepreneur and build a company.
Let's start one this weekend.
Thrive AI.
So what is the difference between entrepreneurs that actually, have a chance at succeeding and those that don't? This joke of yours, let's start one this weekend. Some people actually go and do it. And there's nothing to stop you from going and doing it right now. Do a $40 a month ChatGPT Pro subscription, right? Download some other tools like use Lovable and Replit and get some off-site coders to help you finish and finalize a product. Go and check it out and see what happens. It'll be a $200, $300 experiment, but that may yield something that is phenomenally more powerful than that, right? So I think the world may look a lot more entrepreneurial, and I hope that's what it looks like.
I think that's true because beyond tech, we do see a lot of young people like starting their own businesses nowadays. Like we see like so many articles about home cafes and whatnot. So I think, as you've mentioned, I do notice that there's this really strong entrepreneurial energy amongst young people these days. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you must hear a lot of pitches all the time, right? What's the weirdest pitch you've heard? And did you secretly think that it will work?
There's a running joke in the firm that I end up investing in the weirdest pitches.
Is it?
And I think that's actually
Can you give us an example?
Okay. I'm going to give an example from an actual portfolio company that we have. And I hope the founder does not kill me for sharing this story.
It's called promotion.
Yeah, why not?
It's
Why not?
promotion.
Why not? So it's this company that I mentioned earlier called Transcelestial that does these laser-based telecommunications. And started as a Singapore company, but is truly a global company now. The founder, his name's Rohit, he basically walks into my office one day and tells me, and he starts his pitch, and he had rehearsed this pitch. So there's no hi, this is my name, it's nice to meet you, sit down, let's have a coffee. He walks in and immediately says, Imagine humanity has sent a satellite all the way to our closest star, Alpha Centauri. I'm like, what? I'm just like,
Who are you?
Where is this going?
but they have no way of communicating what they're seeing back to Earth because radio waves travel at this certain speed.
Yeah.
And so it'll take, I can't remember how many hundreds or thousands of years to get back to us. What solution does humanity then have? Our solution. Laser-based telecommunications, transcelestial. So I'm like, what is this guy smoking, right?
Did he
And so-
really speak like that though?
Yeah, it was like a very, rehearsed pitch. It looks straight out of the series called Silicon Valley. If you haven't watched the series, you absolutely should. It's hilarious. But we sat down with the founder, tried to understand the business a lot better, worked out that actually there's a terrestrial use case as well, apart from reaching our nearest star, Alpha Centauri, which I don't know who's trying to reach right now. We have to first go to Mars before we explore the rest of it. And we ended up investing in the company, right? That most people would have thought is absolutely insane. Because let's say Rohit nails space lasers and space-based laser telecommunications. That is a huge business. Huge. If he's able to get something like that done, right? If he becomes like the interplanetary Singtel, that's a huge thing, right? And if there's a way for him to start over here on Earth with things like Coachella, with things like disaster relief, with military applications, and then now he's in space already, right? He's already starting to beam some of that information from space. That's how you start these businesses, and it goes from 0 to 1. Yeah, but we've heard all kinds of, there's so many stories, but that's one that stands out.
I just want to go back to something you said near the start when you were talking about your career journey, about how you had that 2-week period and then you started reaching out to everybody you knew. You met them for coffee, you met them for drinks. I mean, I think a lot of people our age, we know the importance of networking, right? And networking got you
Where you are
your
today.
VC career. But when you first reached out to these people, what did you talk about? Like, I want to meet you for coffee, but I mean, I'm not a
How do
doctor.
you
So
start
what?
the
Yeah.
conversation?
So, apart from a handful of those people, I didn't really know very many of them. I must have met at least 100 people, no exaggeration. And I met them in a very concentrated period of time. And because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and just to date this, I was 28 years old or 27 years old at the time. I just turned 40 this year. And I had a set of questions I wanted to ask everyone, and they were the same questions. And my questions to them were, what exactly is it that you do? What do you do on a daily basis? So if you, for example, you speak to investment bankers, they're like, oh, you read about this deal in the paper? That was me. And then you ask them what they actually did, and they're like, I was sitting behind a desk in Excel for,
Yeah.
300 days. That's all I did. I asked them about whether if they had the choice, they would do it all over again. I asked them what they enjoyed about it, what they hated about it. I asked them what their relationships with their family and loved ones were like. I asked them what their relationship with money and ambition and power was like. I asked them whether they felt like they were better people or worse people for having got into the job, right? So I asked them fairly deeply introspective questions. And there were two things that struck me about that entire process. The first is I felt people were actually very generous with their time because I was really a nobody back then. I just reached out saying, hey, my name is Vishal. I'm trying to figure out what to do next with my life. Here's what I've done. If someone made the introduction, it was helpful. If no one made the introduction, people were still generous with their time. They actually took time out to come and meet me for at least a coffee and have a chat, right? And I, till this day, deeply value and appreciate that and try and pay that forward in whatever way I can. So once a week, I'll have a coffee with someone that is going through a career. Till this day, I do it. Like almost every week, I'll make a little bit of time to meet someone that is having a big life question on their minds. The second thing that struck me about that entire process is very few people actually think about these things. So many of them were thinking about the questions I was asking for the first time. And these were people who were even pretty established in the fields in which they were in. And that surprised me. So I felt that a lot of people get into doing what they're doing or stumble into it. Maybe not in an intentional way. And not everyone enjoyed what they did. In fact, I think a majority of people felt it was just a job. And they got good at it because they mastered the game, but may not have done that all over again if they had the choice. So that was an interesting realization from that entire process. And it taught me a lot about myself when I was asking those questions. So, whenever people, especially younger people, ask me for career advice, what should I do? How should I do this? How should I think about my life? Honestly, all of those answers are within you. The real question is, do you know yourself well enough? And if you know yourself well enough, then when you're presented with options, you know what path to take. Or even if you're not presented with options, you know where to go. And you also have to be lucky, right? So it's a combination of all of these things together that allows you to move in a direction that you want.
So would you say that your advice to young people would be to be more self-aware about themselves? Like knowing what they like and what they do not like, their passion, their interests, and all that.
I think a lot of people have a superficial understanding of themselves. They think, oh, VC, this looks cool, get to invest in companies, startups. Maybe these guys earn a lot of cash, maybe they don't, but I want to be a VC. And when you ask them what does that mean and why do they care about that and why do they want to do that and what have they shown that has made them interested in VC, the questions quickly fade away. And I think that this is common in general, and it's not like a younger people thing. I think the takeaway is that a lot of people don't give the degree of thought that they need into the things that they do. And so instead of living your days intentionally, you're living your days just going with the momentum and the flow of what's happened. And sometimes you wake up and you realize you're unhappy with what's happened, and by then the years have gone by. So it's never too late to restart and ask yourself those questions. But the sooner you ask those questions, the better it is for you as well. The other piece of advice, if I'm giving advice specifically for people younger that want to make a career switch, and whether that's in VC or in any other thing, is you've got to ask yourself what you're willing to give up to get there. What are you willing to sacrifice? When I moved into VC, I went from being a fairly high earning individual to zero. We were just raising the first funds. I knew nothing about the profession. They said we don't really have and you're starting off in a senior position already in an area that you don't know. And they're like, man, we have to see if this works out before we can start to compensate you. And it was only many years later, after we spent a lot of time building and growing the business, that we were actually able to monetize it and then pay ourselves something that looked like a little bit more than a stipend. So when I speak with young people and they say, oh, I really want to cross over and I really want to do something different, I always ask the question, well, what are you willing to give up to get there? And if you aren't willing to make the sacrifice, then you've got to be comfortable with that decision. And it's fine. There's no right or wrong answer. But the truly motivated, so if you know what you want and you know how important it is for you and you know this is the direction that you want to go in, you will understand what you're willing to sacrifice to get there. And by the way, my lesson and takeaway isn't you got to be willing to not work with a salary or anything. That is not at all the takeaway over here. But I think the takeaway is that if you don't know what you want and how much you want it, and you don't know yourself, you're not going to even know what you're willing to give up to get there. You're not even going to know what you want to give up in terms of your time. Will you want to burn the midnight oil and learn about and take on a second career as a VC blogger or helping startups? We had people on our team that when they had no idea what VC, that they wanted to break into VC, what they would do is spend all of their time, free time, while in whatever job they were before, working with startups and helping founders out, just do things and building a relationship and reputation for themselves. So when they stand out versus someone that doesn't have that experience or someone who is even from another VC firm and we look at how driven that individual is, we're like, I would rather take a shot at that person because I know they really want to do this. And when the times are hard and the going is tough, and the way I've told this story is like it all looks like up to the right, and it wasn't. There were a lot of downtimes, curves, meanders in the journey. what keeps you going in the hard times is remembering how much it matters to you and why you're doing what you're doing, which is why we focus on that a lot.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Vishal.
Thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure. The two of you are such great hosts.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.